The French seem to have an uncanny knack for making thoroughly good, simple utilitarian vehicles for the masses. Sure, Volkswagen and Germany had the Beetle, but when you look at it, no one has a roster of hits quite like the French. To put it simply, simplicity was success in France. Hello and welcome to another classic car review. Now, when we do think of simple French motoring, there tends to be one car that comes to mind first, the poster child, if you will, the Citroen 2CV, or de Chevaux if you want to be properly authentic. But I think the car behind me, which was originally penned to take over from that model, is better in every way. Yet everyone seems to have forgotten about it. It's the Citroen Dyane. By the 1960s, the French car buyer wanted something a little bit different. They wanted the simple, plain, unfiltered raw motoring you got with a 2CV, but with a little bit more comfort and a little bit more in the way of options and perhaps even luxury, which is where the Renault 4 came in and was slowly starting to take over from the 2CV. It could provide all of that and more, and as such, numbers were selling far greater than the 2CV as we merged into the mid-1960s. And so something had to be done. Citroën gave the job to recently acquired Panhard, another French auto manufacturer, who decided to take the successes of the 2CV and build on them, quite literally. This has a great deal of 2CV underpinnings, but styling was tweaked into what we now know as the Dyane. Introduced in 1967, 1968 for the UK market, it sought to insert itself in between the 2CV and the Ami in the Citroën lineup, while slowly replacing its older brother. Rather interestingly, things didn't go quite as Citroën had planned for the Dyane, and it was actually axed in 1983, at which point it was far underselling the 2CV. Although initially selling in great numbers and outselling the 2CV when it was first introduced in the late 1960s, it was an entirely different story by the end of the Dyane's production run. In total, 3.8 million 2CVs were made, while only 1.4 million Dyanes were made. Now, that's not a small number, but it's less than half of what its older brother was doing. And this is something that's always puzzled me, because in my opinion, the Dyane is a better car in every conceivable way. I'm going to have a little bit more of a look round and delve into this lovely 1978 Dyane 6 and see if I can convince you of the same thing. So let's crack on. The Dyane was available in two main trim levels. There was Luxe, which rather ironically was the basic spec, and then there was Comfort, which was the luxury spec. They were relatively similar, the main changes being proper moulded door panels for the luxury spec, and because you were really lucky and you were spending that little bit more money, they even fixed your spare tyre under the bonnet rather than leaving it loose in the boot. The cabin itself is a rather nice place to be. It's comfortable, it's very basic, but it all works. You've got that rather unusual shifting setup and a classic single spoke steering wheel. It works, and it's a little bit of a nice advancement over the 2CV in my opinion. What people remember of Citroens, and in fact all French cars of this era, is a little bit of quirkiness, and this gear shifter is no different. It's similar to what is used in the 2CV, and it's definitely worth talking about. With the clutch down, this is neutral here, which is, you know, fairly self-explanatory, but it's actually on this linear system here. So first is actually all the way down, followed by second up here, and then over and down and across is third. Then if we come back out, reverse is actually over here. It definitely takes some getting used to, but it does work. And once you get it in your head that you're not going in a typical up, down and across fashion, it's actually quite fun. Now, believe it or not, under this spare wheel lies an engine, and a real gem of one in my opinion. Now, as I said earlier, this is a Dyane 6, which means this gets the top flight 602cc engine, good for 71 miles an hour if you listen to Citroën. It uses forced induction and air cooling to get going and keep itself at temp, and it's a very reliable, simple unit. These do go on forever, and parts are still readily available. Originally, the Dyane was available with a 425cc unit, which derived from the Citroen 2CV, but after 5 months, the Citroen Dyane 4 was introduced, which took that up to 435cc and 26 horsepower. So, out and about in the little Citroen. I'll be honest, I'm already smitten with this, and I've only been going down the road for 100 yards. The Dyane is a tremendously fun car to drive. There is absolutely nothing in the way of power, but there's also nothing in the way of weight, which means it has a really, really fun quality to it, especially on these little country lanes. Obviously, that rather unconventional gearbox setup does take some getting used to, but once you know what you're doing, it all just makes sense. I'm particularly impressed with the road holding in this. Obviously, when you think of this and the 2CV, you think of big wallowy suspension, but it's actually quite well contained and precise. Obviously, there is a good level of waft and body roll as you go into a corner, but you experience it far less than you think you would as a driver or even as a passenger. I'm pootling along at 40 miles an hour, but it's still, even with the window open, impressively quiet in here. That little engine is like a sewing machine. Turning circle is tremendous, as you would expect. You can very much turn on a sixpence. It's a nippy little thing, this being the Dyane 6 with the 600cc engine. It's quite a sprightly vehicle. Obviously, it's not going to win any street races, but at modernish speeds, it's very comfortable. This obviously has a reported top speed around 75 miles an hour, but I didn't get anywhere close to that today. I absolutely love the steering wheel in here. It's that classic quirky French single spoke wheel, but it just works so well. It's a lovely thickness and it's really manoeuvrable. As much as it's a very similar underpinning, I think this is leaps and bounds above a 2CV. You drive it and I can't help but think, why wouldn't you have one of these over the latter? It gets up to speed a lot better than I was anticipating. For maximum authenticity, I've made my way onto a farm track and the suspension is living up to its name. If I had my carton of unbroken eggs on the passenger seat here, I'm sure I'd get to the end of this track and they'd still all be intact. It's very, very smooth. It just swallows up any imperfection in the road surface. I used to own a Beetle, which you could often argue is Germany's answer to something like this. And I tell you what, I'm having a lot more fun in the Dyane. I've absolutely loved my time with the Dyane today. It's a really, really good car in my books. I'd love one myself. I think this would be a perfect little everyday city commuter. Sure, it could do a longer journey here and there, but I think the city in modern traffic with modern speeds is where this is at home. I think at their current price point, they're bound to go up as people start to garner more appreciation for these. So if you're looking for an unusual bit of French motoring history, consider a Dyane. Thank you very much for watching the video review of this lovely little Citroen. If you do like this sort of thing, please check out our other video reviews.